Other countries have reacted to the coronavirus pandemic. Here's a quick summary of what they're up to. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We go through what some other countries are doing right now. We know that here in the United States, in the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi was able to negotiate with Steve Mnuchin and put together an $840 billion package that included basically extended unemployment benefits for about 20% of working Americans. It didn't hit the 80% of working Americans who either work for very large employers, small companies, work for themselves, or are working in the gig economy. The low-income workers as well, most of the low-income workers. Doesn't cover them, because Steve Mnuchin was protective of these giant corporations and didn't really want to give anything to the small companies, and so but that got passed. That was passed by the Senate, and then the Senate came up with this $1.8 trillion package. Patty Murray put a rider into there, or an amendment into there, that simply said, let's give 2 weeks of paid sick time and 14 weeks of family leave time if a member of the family gets sick or has to be out, or you have to care for somebody with the coronavirus or whatever. Let's just give 2 weeks of paid sick time. We're the only country in the world that doesn't offer paid sick time, doesn't mandate it. 2 weeks of paid sick time, 14 weeks of family leave time. Every single Republican in the Senate voted against it. Every single one. So, it's telling you something about their values. So let's look at the rest of the world and what's going on around the world. In Iceland right now, people actually get paid for being in quarantine. Not only do you get your full salary or normal paycheck, but it doesn't affect your sick leave at all. And of course, in Iceland, all health care is free. Italy was bitten badly by a failure to lock down early on and have widespread testing, but they're offering up to 36 months, 3 years of pay if your job vanishes or is suspended because of the virus. The government makes a direct payment to your employer, who has to pass all of the money along to you as normal, or in some cases a slightly scaled back paycheck. Oh, and all health care is free in Italy. Ireland is giving everyone, including those working in the gig economy, a temporary income and incentivizing them to stay at home if they have symptoms of the virus. They've also kicked in a 50% increase in sick pay benefits, and all health care is free. In the UK, mortgages and rentals hit a 3-month pause for people affected by the crisis, and they have blocked evictions. The government is backstopping banks to 80% of loans made up to $5 million for small businesses. The total backstopping package for businesses, particularly and including small businesses, is 15% of the nation's GDP, which in the U.S. would be $3 trillion. Just for the loans to businesses, or just for the government backstopping the existing loans for businesses. And by the way, in the first 6 months, all loans are interest-free in the UK, and of course in the UK, all health care is free. Germany has pledged unlimited cash to businesses of all sizes, what Finance Minister Olaf Scholz called a big bazooka. Peter Altmaier, the economy minister, added, quote, "We are making an unlimited pledge to the smallest businesses, from taxi drivers to the creative industry to really big firms with tens of thousands of workers." So that's happening in Germany. Even in the gig economy, everybody's getting, quote, unlimited cash to businesses of all sizes. Oh, and in Germany, all health care is free. Denmark will give cash payments to businesses of all sizes to cover 75% of employees' salaries if they promise not to cut staff, up to $3,400 per month per employee. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen told the nation's businesses in a March 15th press conference, quote, "If there's a big drop in activity and production is halted, we understand the need to send home employees, but we ask you, don't fire them." And in Denmark, of course, all health care is free. France pays up to 70% of your salary and subsidizes your employer as well. In France, of course, all health care is free. Under normal circumstances, for shorter periods of time, varies by country, you get a month's paid sick leave every year. In Norway, Malta, Luxembourg, Germany, Croatia, Austria, and Belgium, all those countries are looking at extending that month of free paid sick time to longer periods. Oh, and by the way, health care is free in every single one of those countries. Here in the U.S., we've done virtually nothing. The Republicans are so committed to their Reaganomics grift that even the modest $800 billion deal that Nancy Pelosi finally negotiated with foreclosure king Steve Mnuchin only provides paid sick leave to 20% of American workers. The Trump mortgage payment freeze the administration has touted only applies to about half of mortgages, those federally held by Freddie or Fannie. And even then, you have to show your worthiness for the discount. And if you only lose part of your paycheck, you lose part of the postponement. And to add insult to injury, under the Trump program, banks are still piling up your interest and adding it back into your principal on the loan. So when your postponement ends, you'll owe even more on your mortgage. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Washington State Senator Patty Murray tried to attach an amendment to Mitch McConnell's new $1 trillion bailout of the airlines and other giant industries, along with a nice new tax cut. Murray's amendment would have cleaned up Mnuchin's failure and had our government guarantee every American 2 weeks of paid sick leave, 12 weeks, I'm sorry, I said 14 weeks before. It is 12 weeks of family leave, covering the left out 80% of American workers, including those in the gig economy. And that was too much for the grifters at the GOP. All 51 Republican senators present, this was last week, voted against it, killing the amendment. And by the way, health care here is not free. In fact, 500,000 of us go bankrupt every year because of our health care system. So that's kind of where we're at. Other pieces to the news associated with this. The Justice Department, Attorney General Bill Barr, is asking for this from the Daily Kos via the New York Times, is asking for the right to hold people indefinitely without trial, to eliminate habeas corpus, to let judges pause trials, to extend the statute of limitations for a year after national emergency ends, and to exclude people who have the coronavirus from applying for asylum. Basically, emergency powers. Viktor Orban, by the way, over in Hungary, he has the legislature this week voting on whether or not he can rule by decree. In other words, anything he says, if it comes out of his mouth, it is now law. This is the ultimate oligarchic power grab. And of course, I've shared with you before what Viktor Orban is up to. Meanwhile, over at the New York Times, this is a very troubling report. It's called "Terrified Package Delivery Employees Are Going to Work Sick." An increasing number of workers sorting those boxes, loading them onto trucks, and then transporting and delivering them around the country have fallen sick. They have coughs, sore throats, aches, and fevers, symptoms consistent with the coronavirus, yet they are still reporting for their shifts in crowded shipping facilities and warehouses and truck depots, fearful of what will happen if they don't show up. Angel Duarte, a package handler at UPS in Tucson, said, I've been coming in sick because I'm worried that I'll lose my job or just be punished if I call out. I'm 23, I have no savings, I have a 4-month-old son. And Angel, now that he has showed up in the New York Times, or she has showed up in the New York Times, may not even have a job anymore. I mean, this is the super scary part of this. Some warehouse workers said supervisors had rebuffed them when they pleaded for bleach, masks, gloves, and a ready supply of hand sanitizer. In some facilities, even hand soap and paper towels are scarce, employees said. Employees continue to be jammed shoulder to shoulder along conveyor belts and required to maintain rituals such as security pat-downs. A UPS driver with a compromised immune system said she'd been hauling packages around Northern California despite feeling sick for a week. With an avalanche of orders, whose supervisor told her UPS couldn't afford to lose her even for a couple of days. At XPO, a big freight handler, which handles shipping for companies like Disney, Nike, and Verizon, and has a large fleet of trucks that haul goods nationwide, warehouse workers and truck drivers do not get any paid sick days. The company, which has faced intense criticism from employees about dangerous work conditions in its warehouse, offered to lend workers up to 100 hours of time off, but employees have to repay the time. An XPO worker and driver said in interviews that as a result of the company's policy on sick leave, they've been going into work with coughs and worse. Dan Baker, a part-time package handler for FedEx in Nashville, worked through sore throat and stomach problems this month. When he developed a fever, he told his supervisor he needed the day off. "We really need you here today," Mr. Baker's supervisor told him in a text message. Wow.